Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, Kolleginnen und
Ladies
Kollegen,
and gentlemen,
einen wunderschönen guten Morgen
I would like to welcome
und
you.
willkommen bei Volkswagen
Good
in
morning
Wolfsburg.
here at
Ladies and gentlemen,
Volkswagen
good morning
at Wolfsburg.
and welcome to Volkswagen in Wolfsburg. We have translation for everybody who does not speak German. Channel number 2 is English and channel number 3 is Chinese. Wir bedanken uns ganz herzlich, dass Sie den Weg, den
I would
teilweise
like
langen
to
Weg
thank
nach
you for having
Wolfsburg
come
gefunden
here
haben
and
und
have
deswegen
taken this
erlauben Sie es
long
mir,
way.
dass
In
ich
some
mich ganz
cases it's a
besonders
long
bei
way,
den chinesischen
so I'd especially
Kolleginnen
like
und
to thank
Kollegen
our
bedanken, die
Chinese
tatsächlich
colleagues
heute die längste Anfahrt
who in fact
beziehungsweise
had
den
the
längsten
longest
Hinflug
journey
nach Wolfsburg
to
auf
come
sich
here
genommen haben.
to Wolfsburg.
Und vielen Dank, dass Sie alle in dieser Woche eine ganze Serie
I would like to thank
an
all of you for
Volkswagen-Konzernthemen
participating in
Heute
this long
geht es nach
history
dem
of
Konzernessen
Volkswagen
in Berlin
group topics, and
um die
now
Marke
after the
Volkswagen.
group
Und dazu
press conference
begrüße
at
ich
Berlin,
ganz herzlich
we
den
have the press conference
Dr.
of
Herbert
the
Dies.
Volkswagen brand, and I would like to
Eine
welcome the
bekannte
head
Größe
of the
im
Volkswagen brand,
Konzern
Dr.
und
Herbert
heute
Dies.
In einer neuen Funktion erstmals in dieser Runde dabei.
Now in a new
Dr.
function,
Andreas
we have
Trostmann,
Dr. Andreas
der neue
Trostmann, who used to work for the group,
Produktionsvorstand von
and
Volkswagen. Er war
he
bis
is
vor
now
kurzem der Produktionsvorstand
director of
von Seat in Spanien.
Volkswagen, responsible
Daher auch
for
in neuer
production. He
Funktion,
used to be
an
the
neuem
head of
Platz, aber
production
eine
for
ähnlich
Seat,
bekannte Größe
and now also in a
im
new
Unternehmen
function, but
der
well
ehemalige
known,
Produktionsvorstand
we have the
von
former
Volkswagen, Thomas Ulbrich,
head of production of Volkswagen, Thomas Ulbrich, who is now the head of the mobility entities of the Volkswagen Group. I would also like to welcome Dr. Arno Antlitz, the CFO, Dr. Karl-Heinz Plessing, responsible for HR, Ralf Brandstätter, Procurement, Thomas Schmal, Component Works, Jürgen Stackmann, Marketing and Sales, and Dr. Frank Welsch, responsible for research and development. Messrs. Antlitz and Dietz are going to comment on the development of Volkswagen in the past financial year, and they're going to comment on the current situation of the Volkswagen brand. And then, after this, as usual, there will be an opportunity for your questions and a discussion. And after this, if you like, there will be lunch for you. Dr. Dietz, you have the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Brand Tower. You've been on the road for Volkswagen a lot recently. Many of you were in Berlin yesterday at the group's annual media and investor conference of the Volkswagen AG. Today, we've invited you to Wolfsburg, into the heart of the Volkswagen brand. Ladies and gentlemen, a good business year is behind us and a decisive phase for our brand. How we've made progress with our strategy and where we're headed to is something that we'll talk to you about today. You know the plan of how we intend to lead Volkswagen into the future. In the first step, we're restoring our core business. By 2020, we aim to position our brand as top of volume and become the leading volume manufacturer. To this effect, we are investing in new products. We're restructuring the regions, repositioning them, increasing our efficiency, and we build expertise in the technologies of the future. In a second step, we'll be launching our electric campaign. We'll aim to become the global leader in e-mobility by 2025 at the latest. At the same time, we're making steady progress in our preparation for autonomous driving, and the final step is the plan to become an automobile manufacturer that is a provider of holistic mobility solutions. What have we achieved in the past fiscal year? In 2017, we've made important progress. The implementation of our strategy, Transform 2025 Plus, delivers. From the Pact for the Future to the Model and Technology Offensive to the regional strategies, all initiatives are helping to foster Volkswagen's good and successful development. Our customers also see us as fit for the future again. The latest image survey by Automotor and Sport, a German magazine, Volkswagen has once again gained in popularity in terms of the question regarding which automotive brand is the latest trend. The downturn seems to have passed, and we'll continue our concerted efforts to regain the lasting trust of our customers and the general public. My gratitude and thanks goes to all our employees around the world, in Germany, China, Latin America, the US, Mexico, and many other countries. They've all done an extraordinary job last year, and they've demonstrated in these difficult circumstances how strong this team is. I am proud of them. Ladies and gentlemen, in all our key financial performance indicators, the KPIs, we've improved. Last year we delivered 6.23 million vehicles to our customers, more than ever before. In our largest single market, China alone, we delivered 3.2 million vehicles. Never before has a car brand in China or any other market in the world, for that matter, sold more vehicles. And with the Golf, Tiguan and Polo, 3 Volkswagen vehicles are among the 10 best-selling vehicles in the world. Also, revenue and earnings have been improved. At 80 billion euros, revenue was 8% higher than the previous year. Operating profit improved by 77% to 3.3 billion euros before special items. With this, earnings increased again for the first time in 5 years, and we make a significant contribution to the group's improvements. After 5 years, for the first time, we've improved operating return, which makes a significant contribution to the group's improvements. At a operating return on sales for 4.1%, we are right on target. We're aiming for at least 6% return on sales in the long term to be well prepared for the future on a sustainable basis. Now, all this demonstrates that our strategy Transform 2025 Plus is delivering. Our new models are a key driver for this upward trend. Over the past year, we put 19 new vehicles on the roads, and on a monthly basis, model rollouts for the upcoming years have already been decided on. By 2020, we'll have almost completely renewed our product range and expanded in key areas. All told, our development team is currently working on 55 new models. At the forefront of our model range is the Arteon, representing the new flagship in terms of technology and design. It got the Golden Steering Wheel Award, prevailing over the premium competitor cars. The Arteon will be launched in the US and China this year. We will also offer the Arteon as a shooting brake option, which is a coupe with a hatchback and more useful space. The type of engine is still under discussion. In the 6th generation Polo, based on the MQB platform, in design, technology and smooth handling performance have been well received. The Polo is currently sweeping up one test victory after another. In Brazil, it was recently awarded the Car of the Year trophy. And at the end of January, the new Polo was recognized in the Best Car Awards in Automotor und Sport, a German car magazine. In addition to the normal variants, we also offer the Polo as a GTI. Based on the MQB platform, the Polo is now a real GTI, with a rigid body, dynamic suspension and delivering more than 200 horsepower. A new member of the GTI family is the Up GTI. In terms of package size and performance, it almost mirrors the original GTI, but now it comes with modern TSI technology and intelligent connectivity. The Up GTI is also the first vehicle of our brand to be type-approved based on the new WLTP test cycle. I'm very pleased that with these three models, we now have a strong GTI offering in the small and compact vehicle segment. A new segment is tapped by the T-Roc. A new lifestyle SUV is highly acclaimed, and it's making its debut at exactly the right time. Timing is perfect. By 2027, the market for small and compact SUVs is expected to double to 11 million vehicles worldwide. And with the T-Roc, we're very well prepared for that. The demand is already so high that we are expanding production to run on a 4-shift schedule. And this will make the manufacturing plant in Palmela in Portugal one of our most best utilized plants in terms of capacity in our brand. The Tiguan plays a leading role among the SUVs, with an increase in sales by 200,000 units within 1 year. At a total of 720,000 deliveries, the Tiguan has undoubtedly become a global best-seller. Worldwide, it's one of the 3 top SUVs. The Tiguan is now produced in Germany, China, Mexico, Russia, India, and Malaysia. The demand for it is further increasing. In markets such as Canada, the Tiguan is already the best-selling Volkswagen. SUVs are a key driver of growth for our brand in terms of both unit sales and earnings. And this is why we are expanding our offer substantially. Last year, we increased the SUV share in our portfolio from 10 to 14%. Every 7th Volkswagen sold is now already an SUV. In the US, as of February, the share is 54% even. By 2020, we'll have 19 SUV models in our lineup, from small vehicles the size of the Polo to the large or full-sized models. Our strong products in the regions ensure an upward trend as well. In 2017, we repeatedly outperformed the market. In many cases, also underpinned by our turnaround program. In the US, our brand grew by 5% despite the contracting overall market. The new Atlas, in one example, performed very well. It occupies a core segment we previously didn't have a presence in, and the Atlas was recently voted the best car in the US. With this, we are setting an important stage for a comeback in the US. In the medium term, we intend to become the leading volume provider, or OEM, and aim for around 5% market share there. On a global stage, the aim is to position Volkswagen at the top of volume in all major regions in the world, and that means that every model will strengthen our resolve and our claim to hold a leading position in the volume segment in terms of quality and technology both. The fact that we are making headway on this trajectory is shown by developments and achievements in Brazil. After the successful completion of our restructuring, we've grown by almost 20% in this very important market, the most important market in South America, double the growth of the overall market. The new Polo has become the 4th best-selling car in Brazil. The car is making an impact on the market, also thanks to its superior technology. We have equally high expectations for the Virtus. Like the Polo, this is based on the MQB and will soon be commercially available. We are investing up to around 1.75 billion euros into renewing our product range in Brazil. until 2020, and our aim is to regain our leading position with a rejuvenated portfolio. In 2018, we anticipate a further boost in unit sales and an increase in market share. Looking at the global markets, China plays an importantly central role, a key role for Volkswagen. Here, the largest automotive market in the world, we remain in the top position with a market share of around 13%. During 2017, we expanded our market share through in a tough competitive environment and growing local automotive industry. SUVs are also in high demand in China. We delivered 400,000 units in the past year. Of these, almost every seventh SUV was a Terra Mont, the twin sister model of the Atlas, celebrated as a large success in China as in the US. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very pleased with the achievements and developments in sales in 2017. It is, however, crucial that we are profitable with our vehicles. As you know, we had some catching up to do in this regard, and we still do. And that is why we signed the Pact for the Future. With the Works Council, we undersigned an improvement of earnings, 3.7 billion by 2020. Germany will account for 3 billion euros, and as of today, we've already achieved 2 billion. At many plants, productivity has been clearly improved in Salzgitter, Kassel, and the Tiguan production here in Wolfsburg. They've all outperformed their agreed annual targets. Nevertheless, there's still work to be done. By 2020, we intend to improve productivity by a total of 25%. This year, we're headed towards another 7.5%, and in 2019 and 2020, another 5% each year. Concomitantly, we're optimizing value creation at our sites. This entails shutting down areas of business that are not compatible with future trends, such as the production of industrial engines or combined heat and power plants in Salzgitter or the plastic parts production in Brunswick. Conversely, we're investing in new areas of expertise. We've already created 115 jobs through the pilot manufacturing of battery cells in electric vehicles. We're going for 300. Likewise, we're adding 400 jobs, mainly internal staff, in Brunswick, where the battery system for our new electric platform will be manufactured. We have made good progress thanks to the support of our workforce and employees. The Pact for the Future ensures that our plants are operating at capacity and secures jobs in the long term. We've also addressed costs with the same level of discipline, even though we are in the midst of the largest model campaign in Volkswagen's history. We've largely kept fixed costs stable, as envisaged for the second year in a row. Product costs were even reduced, despite offsetting effects such as the higher steel price. As an example, here in Wolfsburg plant, we've reduced costs related to the Golf by 100 euros per vehicle for the first time in many years, and under non-optimal utilization of the production line. For competitiveness and improved efficiency, a modular assembly matrix is central. The MQB platform is an outstanding technology solution at good production costs and using innovation in our vehicles more quickly and more efficiently than our competitors. Last year, around 40% of all brand vehicles delivered were based on the MQB toolkit or platform. That's twice as many as 2015. The best example of this is the new Polo. Around the world, the Polo is based on the MQB platform. This year, our share of MQB-based vehicles will already be around 60%. By 2020, this ratio will be set to increase to around 80%. Considerable economies of scale and thus cost savings are still imminent, which will have a positive impact on earnings for the brand. We're also using the modular assembly matrix approach with our future electric vehicles. 2 years ago, we set out to develop the MEB toolkit, our modular electric drive matrix, as we call this platform or toolkit now. The MEB leverages the advantages of the electric drive system in terms of fuel range, functionality, design and cost, and sets a new standard in electromobility. Development is running at full speed, and we are right on schedule. We intend to use the MEB throughout the group and rapidly scale its application. Today, we use it for 27 models from 4 brands. China will be the volume base for our electric platform. In November, to this effect, we've signed agreements with our joint venture partners in China. And now, ladies and gentlemen, over to Arno Antlitz, who will give you the key financial indicators for fiscal 2017 in detail.
Ladies and gentlemen, we significantly improved the financial competitiveness of the Volkswagen brand in the past fiscal year 2017. Our business figures bear impressive testimony to that. We generated sales revenue of around 80 billion euros in fiscal 2017, meaning operating profit of 3.3 billion before special items. The operating return on sales stood at 4.1%. However, we had to recognize provisions for resolving the diesel issue in the amount of 2.8 billion euros in the third and fourth quarters. As in the past, this expense is carried as a special item. You may remember the reporting structure of the Volkswagen brand was adapted at the beginning of last year. Our books now only show those activities directly connected with the brand's performance. After adjustment for this effect, we increased sales revenue by around 8% to 80 billion euros. We sold more vehicles and benefited from a positive product mix effect. In addition, we also benefited from the fact that the number of markets recovered sharply. Positive volume and product mix related factors are also the main drivers behind the strong rise in the brand's operating profit. These effects contributed to a total of 1.4 billion euros in earnings year on year. Exchange rate effects increased earnings by around 400 million. We were also able to improve product costs by 400 million euros, although the commodity prices were on the rise throughout 2017. Initial successes in increasing productivity at the plants also had a positive impact here. Fixed costs in 2017 were only insignificantly higher than in the previous year. Despite a sharp increase in sales revenue and continuation of our product initiative, and despite massive upfront expenditure on our all-electric architectures alongside further development of our vehicles with conventional powertrains, non-recurring effects had a negative impact, such as costs for early retirement contracts. The new reporting structure also had a slightly negative effect, totaling around 300 million euros. All in all, however, we increased operating profit before special items by about 1.4 billion euros year on year. The Volkswagen brand's operating profit after special items was around €500 million. We've made further significant progress in cost discipline in 2017. Our research and development costs in 2017 were 3.3 billion euros, or 4.2% of sales revenue, and so at an absolutely competitive level. Sharp increases in technical development helped improve that performance indicator. We are using state-of-the-art virtual technologies to a greater extent in testing, for example. Our capex was 3.6 billion euros and so likewise on track. The capex ratio was 4.5%, meaning we achieved our strategic range of 4 to 5% of sales revenue already in 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, these figures confirm our clear focus on cost and investment discipline. This focus will also lead to an improved cash flow for the Volkswagen brand. We already generated a positive operating cash flow in 2017 of 1 billion euros. However, cash outflows due to the diesel issue meant that the net cash flow was deep in the red. As you know, a positive operating cash flow is not an end in itself. We have to earn enough from our operating business so that we can afford the investments required for the future. By 2020 at the latest, we aim to achieve a robust and sustainable cash flow of over 1 billion euros per year. Ladies and gentlemen, our performance in 2017 proves the three keys to improving our brand's financial competitiveness are having an effect. Our product initiative has picked up speed. 2 new vehicles, the Atlas and the Tiguan All-Space, are on the US market in the high-margin SUV segment. We've launched a further attractive SUV in Europe in the shape of the T-Roc. And in 2018, we will follow suit with the Touareg and the T-Cross. The second key, the Zukunftspakt, the Pact for the Future, has not only resulted in a good performance in terms of fixed costs, but also initial positive boosts from higher productivity at our German sites. Along with measures from the efficiency program that was launched in 2014, costs have been cut by around 2 billion euros to date. We currently have around 9,350 signed early retirement contracts, and you can assume that this will have a positive impact in future in the shape of gains in productivity. We've also made progress in the third key area, the turnaround in the regions. Improvements in the regions North America, Russia and South Africa, and resurgent exports of vehicles to China made a significant contribution to an improvement in earnings last year. We expect these positive trends in the regions to continue in 2018. In South America, we launched the first MQB vehicle, the Polo, last year. Moreover, with the launch there of the Virtus in 2018, we expect significantly positive boosts in market position, image, revenue and operating profits. Our clear objective is to achieve break-even in all regions by 2020 at the latest. Ladies and gentlemen, the Volkswagen brand is on the right path. In 2017, we increased our operating return on sales significantly. In 2018, we aim to consolidate that level and ideally increase it further. We want to increase sales revenue again and expect an operating return on sales between 4% and 5%. In 2018 and 2020, the SUV initiative and the Pact for the Future will also continue to improve our operating profits. The planned improvement in sales revenue and earnings in North and South America will likewise have a positive impact on operating profit. However, I would also like to recall the considerable challenges that will make heavy financial demands on us. From September 2018, the Europe-wide conversion to the new approval procedure according to WLTP will take place. We expressly welcome this new procedure. It will lead to more realistic fuel consumption data for vehicles. However, this change will be extremely demanding for us and the industry as a whole. Until 2020, we will further modernize our vehicle fleet with regard to increasingly strict CO2 and emissions regulations worldwide, by further optimization of our conventional engines and by shifting value creation towards electric mobility. At the same time, we will significantly strengthen our products as regards connectivity and digitalization. For 2025, we are sticking to our targets, namely an operating return on sales of at least 6% and a free cash flow well in excess of 1 billion euros. We are rigorously implementing our strategy 2025. We want and will contribute to shape the future of our industry, offer our customers innovative, attractive vehicles and mobility solutions, and protect the environment in the process, and do so around the world with products that are precisely tailored to meet the needs of local customers. We will thus set an industry standard in electric mobility, which will cover not only the electric car, but also the software and the ecosystem.
Ladies and gentlemen, our strategy guides us, and we are stepping on the accelerator in its implementation. Our focus on 2018 is on our model and technology offensive, the turnaround in the regions, and the further improvement of our competitiveness. A total of 22 new vehicles will be launched this year, 9 of which in China alone. On the chart, you can see a selection of these. The focus is again on the SUVs and electric vehicles. In China, the long wheelbase Tiguan will be introduced as a plug-in version. The new Bora will be added as a BEV, a BEV fully electric vehicle. The e-Golf, which we'd previously imported from Europe, will be locally produced from this year. In the US, even in the beginning of this year, we've already introduced the Jetta. As a complement or an addition in the sedan segment, in spring we'll be launching a luxury sedan, the Arteon, in the US. The redesigned Passat is in the starting blocks for Europe. As usual, the Passat will also be available as a variant, as an estate, and as hybrid models. At the end of the year, a compact city SUV, the T-Cross, is to follow. As the SUV flagship of the brand, we'll be introducing the new Touareg next week. For the first time, a vehicle will be debuted in China. The first motor journalists recently had an opportunity to test drive the vehicle and take it through its paces. They were impressed with the technology, design and handling. For its size, the vehicle has become very easy to handle, emphasizing our commitment to high-quality, innovative and dynamic vehicles in the luxury class. In China, in August, a new compact SUV will be introduced, which we've developed together with our joint venture partner SAIC. We set high expectations in that vehicle. The People's SUV, the current working title, is expected to be an important part of our SUV offer next to the Tiguan. On that basis, we're rolling out the People's SUV worldwide. From 2020, we're expanding production to Argentina, to Mexico, and to Russia. We anticipate a total sales volume per year of around 400,000 vehicles in total. The T-Roc is set to become a family of models. You are already familiar with the SUV model, and in addition to that, we're now bringing out a convertible model with a market launch in the beginning of 2020. The development is already underway and the location for the production is also set, and the new convertible will be produced in Osnabrück. And this will allow the staff, the workforce, to fully utilize and bring to bear the many years of experience with convertibles. The key project is and remains, of course, preparing for our electric offensive. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all aware that to reduce CO2 emissions and improve air quality worldwide, beginning in China, electric vehicles are essential. We are taking this responsibility very seriously and go one step further. Last week, we decided to convert our Volkswagen power plant from coal to gas. By doing so, we'll save 1.5 million tons of CO2 emissions per year, and this corresponds to approximately 870,000 cars per year. And this shows what dramatic improvements can be achieved in terms of CO2 targets by changing primary energy use. Achieving the CO2 fleet targets remains a major challenge for our company. The regulators require us, the government requires us to sell a lot of electric cars by 2020. To achieve the transition to electromobility and the ramp-up of our e-offensive, we've improved organization and restructured. Since February, the brand has had an own board group responsible for e-mobility. And this board-level management function, our previous board member responsible for production, Thomas Ulbrich, now also handles the responsibility for the product line, the production of our e-vehicles centrally in this department. An important part will be the preparation for our electric offensive launch. Zwickau plant will become the largest center for e-mobility in Europe. It is being converted, and the transition of the first production facilities to MEB is already underway. From the middle of 2019, we'll progressively change over to electric vehicle production. At the end of 2020, only MEB electric vehicles will roll off the assembly line, up to 1,500 Volkswagen ID and ID Cross per day, as well as further models from the group. The experience from the past months has shown our customers want to drive electric vehicles. In 2017 alone, in Germany and Europe, 3 times as many electric vehicles were sold than in the previous year. The e-Golf, in January the most popular electric vehicle in Western Europe, has nearly sold out. We are seeing the benefit from the environment or scrapping premium, which we've been offering since August 2017. We've been seeing that customers are willing to switch over to electric vehicles once the price is right. And this is why we are confident that the ID will be successful, as it will only cost as much as a comparable diesel model, together with the low operating costs. We are creating a package in this manner that will make e-mobility attractive indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, with the ID family, based on the MEB, we have a strong technology concept. Through its unique design, with the outer package size the same, we create more cabin space. The ID is as compact as a Golf and almost as roomy on the inside as a Passat. What's more, it's fully connected and has fast charging functionality, and depending on the conditions under which it's operated, has a range of 400 to 500 kilometers. In terms of technology, the ID offers features and assistance systems that were previously reserved for the premium segment, for instance, a head-up display with augmented reality. In the development of our ID family, we are on track. The first wave includes the ID and then the ID Cross, the electric counterpart to the Tiguan. For the ID, in April, the first pre-production prototypes will be built, and then the intensive SOP phase will begin from September. A new focus in the development of our e-vehicles are user experience clinics. User experience is very important. Enjoying the driving doesn't mean a lot of horsepower, but also intuitive operating of the car, services and infotainment systems interacting with the car. We're creating a separate business division headed by Matthias Erb. To address this topic, he will join us from Volkswagen of America, where he's responsible for all engineering activities. It is our aim to make electric driving as simple, comfortable and clean as possible. And to this end, we're investing in infrastructure. By 2020, there'll be around 400 fast-charging points available throughout Europe. We'll supply private households with charging points, a wall box for 300 euros. It's affordable for everyone. We're committed to green power, and we're making our IDs so intelligent that every vehicle will become a rolling credit card. You'll be able to charge your car, not go to the filling station, but charging station, and you'll be able to pay for it, and the car will do it for you. just recharge. And the countdown for the ID vehicle launches has begun. The next technological leap is going to be autonomous driving, the greatest revolution in 130 years of automotive history. Autonomous e-vehicles offer a range of advantages, more comfort and convenience, more potential uses, and greater safety in road traffic. This means that individual mobility will practically lose all the points that are criticized today and that are being hotly debated today. We at Volkswagen imagine such solutions, and we've showcased our vision in Geneva last week. The ID Vision will be launched in 2022 as a new luxury sedan and the top-of-the-range model in the ID family. From the outside, it's got the package size of a Passat. On the inside, it's as spacey as a Phaeton. It'll initially be level 3 autonomous driving and then will be incrementally upgraded if customers so wish. If you want to own such a car, you can. Those who wish can share it with family, friends and acquaintances. And one thing is certain, we are confident that in the future we'll also be driving customized, appealing and emotionally charged vehicles and not identical tin cans. The technological upheaval will renew and enrich the vehicle and open up new prospects. This development needs to be shaped, and that is an exciting challenge for us. Ladies and gentlemen, the results demonstrate that we are indeed on the right track, and I'm confident that 2018 will again be a very good year for Volkswagen. We've already set off to a successful start. In the first 2 months, deliveries worldwide increased by approximately 6%. In Germany, at 14%, we were able to significantly boost sales. Brazil has experienced a turnaround, regained its old strengths, and 110 vehicles above the previous years is the order book currently. We're also keeping a close eye on potential risks. Of course, this includes the switch to a new worldwide harmonized light vehicle test procedure, or WLTP, a large number of launches in China, the partially biased debate on diesels, and of course the threatening trade barriers in the US. Despite these issues, we remain confident. For the year as a whole, we expect further improvements in unit sales, revenue and earnings. In terms of the operating profit, we've set ourselves a target corridor of 4 to 5%. Ladies and gentlemen, in summary, this means that Volkswagen is well on course, the realignment is delivering results, we are winning back the trust of our customers step by step, we've remained committed to our goal, we aim and will shape the transformation of mobility and the car industry. From the front, we'll be in the vanguard, which is a long and rocky ride, but we are well positioned. We're set off to a good start. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dietz. Stay up here. Dr. Antlitz, please also join us up here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like, we'll now take your questions and answer your questions. Go ahead. Good morning. Thank you very much. I would like to ask a question concerning the fleet targets for CO2. In the manuscript for your speech, there is something about the penalties. You didn't comment on this in the presentation, but my question is, where are you standing on CO2 levels today, and how are you going to achieve the fleet targets of 95 grams by 2020? And 140 million euros of penalties, is this a correct number? How is this gauged, and could it be even more? Well, what I commented on is that achieving the CO2 fleet targets are certainly the biggest challenge for our company until 2020, but this also applies to our competitors. in the competitive environment, we all have a gap to the target. It's 20 to 30 grams, depending on the weight classes. It applies to all the volume manufacturers and to many premium manufacturers, so an extreme progress has to be made on average fleet consumption. And we feel that this is only possible with a relatively high number of electric vehicles. For the market launch and for the implementation of these electric vehicles, we are confident. We think that we have a consistent plan so that by 2020 enough electric vehicles can be sold in order to attain the fleet targets, and there will be further improvements on conventional powertrains. There will be a new engine generation that will be rolled out, and 48-volt mild hybrid systems will come. The new Golf will come with clear improvements on CO2 and consumption. It will come in 2019. So we see a series of evolutionary steps, and by 2020 this will be exactly the right time for the right electric vehicles. So we are confident that the brand can achieve these fleet targets. You can work it out for yourself. If, of course, you don't attain the fleet targets, this would lead to penalties. And I think this is a number that we need to take into account when assessing our efforts. So we're quite rigorous about this so that we make the launch dates, that we have enough product substance. But if we don't attain the fleet targets, this would lead to considerable penalties. It would apply to the whole industry. We think that we're slightly better than many of our competitors. The next question comes from Ms. Jansen and then from Mr. Ulrich. Good morning. I'd like to ask you several questions. You've just said the environmental bonus would help so that car owners would switch to electric mobility. Are you thinking about continuing this bonus? And then in your speech you said in 2017, 3 times more electric vehicles were sold than the previous year. Could you give us some sales numbers? And then an issue of the previous year, the salaries of several Works Council members were frozen, and we heard that you were going to make efforts for a solution soon. Is there any progress? Concerning the environmental bonus, we think that this bonus has proved to be successful. About 160,000 vehicles of emissions rates 1 to 4 were bought back. That is, they were traded in, and this has clearly reduced emissions. We worked this out. It's about 2,000 tons less nitric oxides in the cities, and the environmental bonus met with a very good response. We're the only manufacturer who really scraps these old vehicles, as far as I know. This has meant a considerable contribution towards improving air quality in cities, and we also see, and we have different incentive levels that we're offering for different cars. For the electric Golf, we have very much reduced it in price to a pricing point which we think we can achieve with our new cars like the ID. And we think that this pricing point, and with a range of the e-Golf of about 300 kilometers, this will lead to an offer for customers which has exceeded our expectations. The electric Golf received a high number of orders relatively rapidly. We're nearly sold out for the rest of the year. And this really confirms our strategy. It shows that at a pricing point at which the electric vehicle becomes comparable to traditional passenger cars, many customers will buy even with an infrastructure that's not sufficient yet and with a range of 300 and not 400 or 500 kilometers. So it's still a relatively difficult environment, but people like driving these electric vehicles. It confirms our strategy. It was a little surprise to us, the extent it reached. So the environmental bonus was an important signal for us, and we feel And it was a tremendous step in the political discussion, so as to avoid any bans of our cars in the cities. Now we're thinking about what to do next, but I think this will need a political discussion. And the number of electric vehicles sold in 2017 was 43,000.
Mr. Ulrich, Karl-Heinz Blessing about the Works Councillors, the question about the remuneration. On the remuneration for the Works Councillors, the question you had, it's not their fault, you know. They relied on their remuneration that the company has agreed to pay them is correct. And this remuneration, we still assume that it is compliant with all relevant rules and regulations. The German Works Constitution Act, as you know, is not very specific in this point, so there is room for interpretation to construe the law accordingly, and we're currently having this assessed through external lawyers' offices so that it holds up in court. And this process is ongoing. It's not finished yet. It's not come to a conclusion yet. We're stepping on the accelerator. We're hurrying up because that is a not good situation for the company and those concerned. But those are experts that are taking their time to do this carefully. We cannot press them to move on faster, but we believe to have made significant progress by summer. Now, Mr. Ulrich, and then close to him from Mr. Doll. Ulrich from Freie Presse in Chemnitz. I've got a short question on VW Saxony. First question, Mr. Dietz. You said further group brands will be built in the Zwickau plant. Which group brands will those be? First question. Second question. In your press statement, it says in Zwickau all MEB vehicles for the European market will be made. Can I construe this as meaning that the ID Vision will also be manufactured there? And the third question, if the ID comes to market when it's launched, the e-Golf von Dresden will look somewhat dated, old-fashioned. What's planned for Dresden then? Will that also be able to produce an MEB vehicle? Those are three questions for the new head of E models who will have to start working now. Mr. Ulbrich, over to you. Well, on the other brands that we will produce in Zwickau as well, I believe it's no longer a secret. Seat and Audi, those brands, we've been able to convince them to build them on the new MEB platform, the toolkit or matrix, that they'll have them produced in that plant in Zwickau. So much on your first question. The second, in Zwickau, this is all the cars from the first wave, as we call it, for the European market. This doesn't mean that with the first wave, the MEB toolkit matrix or platform is at its end. We want to build 20 cars on this platform, and in Zwickau only the first wave will start being produced, but it will utilize the capacity in the Zwickau plant to an excellent level and secures jobs for the region thereby. On the third question, what do we do in Dresden? Well, Dresden for us is part of our VW Saxony operation. Dresden and Zwickau will start changing models there that are produced, and it is a showcase. Zwickau will be a showcase for electromobility, and we will build, or Dresden rather, and we will build cars which are also made in Zwickau. Dresden will be the showcase. Our CEO has another comment. Mr. Dies, well, we may be proud of this. You've made a tremendous contribution towards this and achieved many things. Dresden was in a difficult situation when we stopped producing the Phaeton there. It was an important business decision, and in retrospect, it was the right decision. But for the plant, it was very difficult. With the Professor Fürweg and the local leadership team, Thomas Ulbrich, and the whole team, we've converted this plant to a future center. It's a hub. We've introduced a second shift for electric cars that was ramped up, so it's become an innovation center and a showcase for innovative urban mobility. In cities and conurbations, a number of startups are located there and have set up premises with great ideas and innovation. Will use that center and hub for innovation on urban mobility and electromobility. Mr. Ulbrich, we intend to use it also to prepare the SOPs and small series or small production runs, and I believe for the plant it is really instrumental and essential. It's a structural change, and we're securing the future with that location, and this has been achieved over the past few years. We'll have to thank the leadership team and the management and the whole workforce in the team. It was a dramatic situation for our employees and associates there locally at the plant, and they've borne the burden and they've helped us. Now, on to Mr. Dahl's question. The floor is yours.
3 additional questions concerning air quality, Mr. Dietz. As we know, we have an air quality problem in Germany, and the majority want to avoid any bans on driving in cities. Why are you so optimistic that you can get this issue under control with software solutions? And how long will it take to retrofit software solutions on all cars? So far, you don't think so much of hardware retrofits on any modifications on the engines. It would take a longer time and it's expensive. But now there's this internal paper which says that it is supposed to be possible in 7 out of 10 cases within the Volkswagen Group to retrofit cars. So it would work even if it costs a lot of money and takes a long time. And the last question, if there should be any driving bans, if they should not be prevented, what would you think of the introduction of a blue sticker then? You're quite right. Hardware retrofits, we think they're not really suitable. Let me return to our assessment of the situation. The situation in the cities is that the nitric oxide levels measured in certain streets are clearly exceeded. The situation has improved continuously over the last years. Over the last 15 years, nitric oxide levels, due to new models, has been reduced by more than 30%. And at the same time, we had an increase in traffic. When you look back over the last few years, you have to be aware that situation has been improving year on year. It was 90 cities 3 years ago that had to struggle with this problem. Last year it was 70, and 50 out of these 70 are only a few grams away from the limit. So you can expect that maybe even this year or at the latest in 2019, they won't exceed these levels anymore due to the improvement in the vehicle fleets on the road, and due to further improvements we're making. There are certain streets now in these cities, usually narrow concrete canyons with low movement of air and with stop-and-go traffic, with very dense traffic, with lots of traffic going through, with many traffic lights, and we can't be sure yet that the nitric oxide levels will be kept there. Now, Volkswagen, I think, has made a great contribution towards improving the situation. It begins with our software retrofits. We decided that our EU5 diesels, that something should be done on them. It's 2.3 million vehicles. And meanwhile, nearly all of them have been upgraded with new software, which means a reduction of 30% of nitric oxide emissions. This is in the market now, taking effect. And we think that with these measures and with further renewal of our fleets, I've already said about fleet renewal, with the trade-in bonus, about 160,000 old diesel cars were taken off the road. They are much worse than the Euro 5 cars that we now have in the market. So this was a major contribution, but we have to be aware that out of 15 million diesel cars, 6.3 million are Euro 1 to Euro 4 standard. So we have this high population of older diesel engines. We have a series of measures that will take rapid effect. In public transport, for example, very old bus fleets are used with an average age of 13 years. There are some buses out on the road that are 20 years old with emission levels that are 180 or 200 times higher than those of passenger cars. And of course, they travel a lot on their routes, so we have to take action wherever we can get quick results. We need a quick improvement of air quality in these critical points. Now, I like this, that some cities started taking action like making traffic flow more freely at these critical points. And I think if we work together, and I could imagine if it's 4-lane streets, for example, 1 lane could be reserved for public transport and electric vehicles, and this would solve the problem. Not overnight, but within months. So there is a series of measures that are much more efficient and much quicker than hardware upgrades. Let me take this opportunity to point out that we have a huge interest in avoiding any passenger car bans in cities. In the short term, this is our biggest issue. We have some customers who are completely disappointed. They bought cars that are practically new, they're 2 or 3 years old, they have the most advanced levels, and they're threatened that are no longer allowed to get into cities. Many of these cars are owned by us. They're leased out and they're on our books. So losing on residual value would also be dramatic damage to us. We will do everything we can and suggest all kinds of measures in order to avoid these bans, but we think there are much more efficient measures than hardware retrofits. There are older models, older than Euro 5 or Euro 6, that could be retrofitted, but it would take a long time. Hours of work, holes would have to be drilled, and wiring harnesses would have to be cut open and new wiring would have to be installed. High risks. There are some vehicles for which this has never been planned and they would be very hard to convert. The cost would be far more than 3,000 euros per vehicle and wouldn't make so much sense. We think that for a solution vehicle by vehicle, it's hundreds of different models in the market and there would be a development period of 2 to 3 years, and the software solutions alone that we did took 2 years from the beginning of the investigation to testing. It's difficult to calibrate a diesel engine like this. It's a highly complex machine. So hardware solutions would take 2 to 3 years, and we feel that these would be far too late. There are much better and quicker solutions for improving air quality in the cities. And the blue sticker, we don't think that it's needed, the blue sticker, and this is also the view of the Minister of Transport. I think if we, the cities and the automobile industry, cooperate, and if we ask ourselves how we could get even more old diesel cars off the roads, there's no reason why we couldn't avoid any bans of going into cities, and we wouldn't need a blue sticker then.
The next question is to Mr. Hetzner and then Mr. Rief. I have 2 questions, to Mr. Dies and 1 question to Mr. Antlitz. First, will you streamline your diesel engine models and portfolio, looking at the flagging demand for diesel vehicles in Germany? Will your investments in research and development be cut, or CapEx, will that be ramped down? in terms of diesel developments. And this aside you mentioned for the shooting brake motor and drive alternatives, is that an indication of that there will be no diesels available or only limited diesel options for that model? Second question, on the people's SUV, which you addressed, you said from 2020 production will be also located in Mexico and expanded to Mexico. You're implying that this people's SUV is planned to be imported to the US as well. Is that conceivable? And then the question to Mr. Antlitz on the diesel, again, in terms of the resale aftermarket values, as Mr. Dies mentioned, with your portfolio leasing contracts, can you give us some color on how big the risk would be for EU5 vehicles for Volkswagen? And can you provide us an outlook on the next year, up to 10%? We see as the revenue will rise. If the margins meant to stay the same, that will mean that the operating result will move in parallel, right? Mr. Dies. Well, the diesel engine, let me digress a little. The diesel engine will remain important. This is what the customers are telling us, and in the public discussion and in terms of customer image, there's going to be a revival of the diesel's image. We need the diesel to achieve our environmental targets and sustainability in mobility. You see that for cars that drive a lot per year, high mileages and the heavy vehicles, heavy load, particularly in CO2 emissions, we need the diesels. NOxs are a solvable problem. The new engines are almost NOx-free compared to petrol engines. The diesels are much better. Different for CO2, carbon emissions. For climate change, we don't have a problem that is becoming better, looking up, but it is becoming more difficult, and the diesel is part of the solutions, not the problem, because it's more energy efficient and effective than petrols. And for high mileage and heavy-duty trucks and cars, it's superior to hybrids, even to plug-in hybrids in terms of mileage. You can see that in comparison tests. And it will be, for long-haul traffic, be superior to electric vehicles, particularly for Germany, where we have an electric power mix, where coal is still converted to electric power with a lot of carbon emissions, CO2 emissions. And for electric drives, we must factor in the production of batteries, causing a lot of CO2 emissions through the energy required to make these batteries. So when looking at this level-headedly, unbiased and rationally, CO2 efficiency and the long haul, we don't want to build huge big batteries into cars. From a customer point of view and from a CO2 point of view, that's not the right solution. So we believe in the diesel and its future. So we're investing in the next diesel generation, the Euro 6D. The vehicles that have come are almost NOx-free, and I can say this, Mr. Welch, with a good conscience, right? And we believe that for the heavy traffic for customers, it will remain the drive of choice. On the Artin engines, Dr. Welch, maybe very briefly, can you comment? Well, this illusion which you want to have heard between the lines, I can calm your mind there. Nothing's hidden there. What you know and like and appreciate about the Arteon will be available on the shooting brake as well. The People's SUV, production in Mexico, import to the US. Mr. Dies? Well, the People's SUV is something that we've carefully considered and developed, and we see it in a worldwide rollout. SUVs are growing, but compact SUVs are becoming increasingly important because we've got to find the right mix from CO2 emissions and customer needs. We're starting with this vehicle, which is positioned under the Tigran in China, China South and China North. Then, as we see a big market market, like the Tiguan, this car is going to be made worldwide. It will be a global Volkswagen model because we see great market growth as a prospect around the globe. And in Latin America, that will be produced, and in Mexico. And in Mexico, in that production, from Mexico, the US will be supplied as well. Then, Mr. Rief, can you ask your question? And then, I apologize, Dr. Antlitz has an answer as well.
Let me begin with a simple question. Margin the same at 10%. Quite right, we want to increase earnings out of the three reasons. The SUVs and the Zukunftspakt will make further contributions, the Pact for the Future. And we also expect positive contributions, especially from South America, with new models based on the MQB. So these three things will give us a tailwind. And then diesel engines, Dr. Dies pointed this out, diesels are justified in many application cases. There is a certain uncertainty. We look at these things. There are moderate deteriorations in residual values, something like 2%, and some vehicles take a bit longer to be sold. We have a portfolio of Euro 6 vehicles on our books, and Euro 5 vehicles, but we do not see a significant risk based on this. No significant risk for our expected earnings for next year or for the current year, 2018, I must say. Now let's really turn to Mr. Rief and then to Mr. Hegemann. Just wait for the microphone and raise your hand. Mr. Dies, a question to you. Do you feel responsible within Volkswagen that the diesel has such a bad image by now? Well, I do feel co-responsible, to be quite honest, because part of the discussion was also caused by us, by our wrong behavior in the US, which must not be excused. And now we must say that diesel has a different problem, which is the problem of diesel bans in cities. There is simply this discrepancy between the requirements on emissions complied with by the car makers and the air target standards for the cities. So I do feel co-responsible because this development, which escalated over the last few months, could have been foreseen somewhat. If we had taken a closer look at the numbers, developers in the car industry probably would have noticed that the nitric oxide levels in the cities are not decreasing fast enough. They are decreasing, there is some progress, but probably not fast enough. So I would say that this may also have been a mistake in collaboration with our association and with politicians, so that the situation was not recognized early enough. Next is Ms. Hegemann. Hello, I would also like to ask you three questions. First, do you have any number on how high the share is of diesel vehicles in vehicles delivered? Could you give us a comparative number for 2015 or 2016? And what share do you expect by 2020? The same then on e-mobility, the share of delivered electric vehicles, I suppose, is less than 1%. Do you have a specific number, and where do you want to get by 2020? And how many vehicles with electric motor can really be produced by Volkswagen? And the third question, the cost of early retirement. Do you have a specific number? I think Mr. Stackmann can ask the first question. Jürgen, the share of diesel vehicles at the moment, and if at all possible, for the last 2 years as well. I'll give you a comparison of 2017 to 2016. That's the most meaningful number, I think. The share of diesel in the overall mix is relatively underrepresented within the Volkswagen brand, with the high shares of North America, South America, and China, where diesels are not sold. So we have a relatively small portion of diesel engines worldwide. In Europe, the mix is slightly under 50%, 44%, and all in all, it decreased by about 10%. The major diesel markets like Germany, France, Italy and Spain have a somewhat reduced interest in the diesel, but this is stable now. In the orders taken in the first quarter of this year, we see it's pretty stable. It's about 44%. This was the stable mix, and it's now 10% down. 10 percentage points. And if you look at the ACEA data, not just on ours, it's not just a phenomenon for Volkswagen, but for the whole industry. And the share of electric vehicles? Well, as Dr. Dies said, in Germany, when you look at the German market, we used to have a mix of 1.3 or 1.4%. Now, with the environmental bonus, we're at 5.5%. It's quadrupled this share. And very, very old diesel engines are returned, and they're replaced by electric cars. We hadn't expected this, so it's very gratifying. And the target mix for Europe is more than 10% by 2025. This is where we want to get. I think we were quite confident, and we have a very good plan for getting there. Dr. Ulrich, would you like to comment on the capacity for electric vehicles? Capacity, of course, is freely scalable for us. Based on the agreements with sales, the market shares we want to achieve, for 2020, we are striving for 100,000 on the MEB, and with worldwide rollout by 2025, we will reach the well-known number of 1 million. This is what we're preparing for with our capacities and with the upgrading of our plants. And the cost of early retirements, we've made more than 9,000 contracts meanwhile, and the provisions for a contract need to be made in the year in which the contract is signed. And if you remember our bridge, which I gave you, I showed you, concerning fixed costs and one-off effects, there was a charge of about 400 million compared to the previous year, and half of it is due to fixed costs, and the other half, the other 200 million, this is mainly due to the one-off cost for early retirements. It also includes a smaller portion for an environmental program, the contribution of the Volkswagen brand and the group. To give you a ballpark figure, it's about 200 million. Next question comes from Mr. Schweiger, and after him then Mr. John Boy. Mr. Schweiger?
I have three questions as well. I'll start with an easy one. Mr. Dies, you said the plants in Salzgitter and Wolfsburg have outperformed their productivity targets. What about Brunswick? Mr. Andlis, you said in all regions by 2020 break-even to be achieved. In which regions, in concrete terms, is the brand currently not profitable yet? And what is the current market share in the US? Thank you. Mr. Schmal for Brunswick. On your Brunswick question, it is exactly on the path specified in the Future Pact. Mr. Dies mentioned the 7.5%, what we've achieved in Brunswick last year as well, and we're on a good track for this year. And what Mr. Dies addressed was that there are plants like Salzgitter and Kassel that were able to clearly outperform the target of 7.5% due to the good productivity of those plants. The region? Well, we've made great advances in the region. We've got big and small regions. Two large regions for us are North and South America, respectively, and a region is deemed to be Russia and South Africa, or the FPU cars for China, going to China. The past financial year, Russia has reached the break-even. South Africa's managed to break even, and the vehicles to China make a positive contribution to operations. And two big regions, North America, you can derive from my figures that they're still negative. North and South America both. In North America, we've made tremendous progress because of the good product portfolio. In South America, from 2018, with the market launch of the Polo and Virtus, we expect a positive contribution to our brand earnings here. All the world regions by 2020, we intend to achieve a break-even. The plan's up and running, and we're confident that we'll manage and achieve that target. Then Mr. Campo for the next question, and then market share. The market share, the market share in the US. Jürgen, can you comment? 2.6%. Mr. Campoy, then Ms. Mann.
Hi, Larry Veliquette from Automotive News. Could you talk to me or explain how you get to a 5% U.S. market or North American market share? It's in the U.S., which is the largest portion of that. It's never been above. It's only been above 5% twice, and not since 1970. So I'm wondering how you get to that number that equates, by my math, to about 800,000 vehicles?
Yeah, I think we have, first of all, it has been possible for Volkswagen. Yeah, it is possible for many of our peers, for Toyota, for Honda, for our volume competitors, even Hyundai as a late entry is able to achieve it. And we think we have a very solid product portfolio, product pipeline, specifically tailored for the United States. We have a new marketing team which works hard on the brand experience and on the, let's say, positioning of the brand. That is why we believe that it's possible. Not in a short while. No, we think it's going to be a 10 years plan. But it should be possible because it was possible for our main peers. We think America is very important for us. We have an advantage that the brand suffered in the over the last 2 or 3 years, but the brand is known in the United States. It has a certain credibility. It has a rich history in the United States, and there are many people in America who love really Volkswagen. No, thinking back to a very long time. So we think we have, in America, we have a good foundation. We have set up a proper plan. We addressed it with the right resources, with a product portfolio. We will come forward with 2 new products for America every year, specifically tailor-made, which will hit the core segments of the American customer, be SUVs, mainly compact SUVs and sedans. Later we will come with e-vehicles also to the United States. As you know, we are investing also in a charging network in the United States. So we are preparing well for the next phase. So we think it's possible. And also I would say the first year of our strategy shows that it is possible. Now we have a huge uptake for the Atlas, which is, I would say, a really specific product for the United States. American customers love it. We have excellent press feedback. We have excellent press feedback to the Tiguan long wheelbase. I think it's also spot on. We had just a few months ago, we showed the new Jetta to the public and to press people. They loved it. I think it's the right design. It's an iconic product in the United States. It's in the core of the brand. So we think it can be done.
Die nächste Frage an Herrn Rauwald, bitte.
The next question goes to Mr. Rauwald in the third row. Could you please give us a show of hands? Raise your hand, please, and wait for the roving mic, and then Mr. Bricke.
Christoph Rauwald from Bloomberg.
Christoph Rauwald from Bloomberg. I have 3 short questions, if I may. Can I just come back to, Mr. Müller, during the group annual media conference and investor conference in the component manufacturing reorganization in the beginning of 2019, there will be the next phase. Can you indicate what the concrete plans to improve efficiency there? Maybe Mr. Schmal can answer that. I'll take that question. Then, Mr. Dies, you started an investigation that IG Metall trade union members, when being promoted, were given preeminence, or that they there was nepotism, or their member in this as works councillor was a reason in promoting them. What was the result of that investigation? And then to Mr. Antlitz, what earnings effect due to currency effects and commodity costs do you expect? First question goes to Mr. Schmal. Can you take that? The answer. Well, in component manufacturing, we're on a good track. 56 factories with 80,000 workforce worldwide is the basis we're working from there. And with the realignment, restructuring of component manufacturing, our target is that in the beginning of 2019, we want to create an independent entrepreneurial or commercial unit, like a VW brand or a commercial vehicle brand. So we are clustering the component manufacturing under the roof of Volkswagen AG. That's a very important statement. Management has been established for just under a year, 4 heads in the executive team. That describes that process. And currently in 2018, we're calling that the year of transformation, because you can imagine a project of that order of magnitude is not everyday business at Volkswagen brand. The processes, the financial systems have to be reorganized so that this can work from 2019. Next year, it can work independently. The transformation process to e-mobility, the Pact for the Future, the Zukunftspakt, as we call it, describes our transformation to being more competitive. The cities address that productivity is, of course, a central key thing, particularly on the German manufacturing plant front, that we need to drive forward. Well, I haven't done the investigation as you're alleging. I just asked those responsible for that. This is not the case. Dr. Antlitz, then currency and commodities. Well, for raw materials and currency, we expect small charges arising from these areas, which will not lead us to not achieving our margin target of 4-5%. For currency, you've got to know that when it comes to exchange rates, we're invested in dollars. We have few exports to the US. The cars are locally made in Chattanooga and Mexico. It's the small currencies that could hurt us. Mexican peso and the Russian ruble, Brazil, which you don't have on your radar, the small currencies, you know. And here we are putting our shoulder behind that wheel. We are counteracting them, balancing that with further localization. Then there is the pound for 2018 and 19. We're well hedged there for these charges to be compensated, at least as far as I see that. Then raw materials, steel, of course, must be mentioned. Mr. Brandstetter and his team, I will rely on them that they will overcompensate for the rises in commodity prices. When we present the EBITDA next year, for the product costs, we will see a positive contribution from product costs, from that side to product costs. Mr. Blanke, here on the aisle. Then Ms. Meyer in row 4, here near the window. Mr. Blanke.
I would like to ask you some questions concerning the Osnabrück and Emden plants. First, Osnabrück, we heard that 80 million is invested in production and the preparation for the production of the T-Roc convertible. So Osnabrück will get MQB production. We heard of 200 million euros to be invested in the plant. This was mentioned at the all-hands meeting last week. So could you give me a number? This would be good. And then we've heard that the prototype for the electric Moja taxi was created at Osnabrück, and 200 of these cars are to be made, to be used at Hamburg, among others. Will they also be made at Osnabrück? And the third question, this is about the Emden plant. If Zwickau now very much switches towards electrical mobility production, would the remaining Passat production then go to Emden? Well, it's 3 questions, and they're all of them exactly right for Dr. Trossmann. Let me start with the last question. It seems to be the easiest one. With the decision of using Zwickau for the MEB, there will be a resorting, of course, of the production portfolio from this plant into other plants. And for Emden, it will mean that additional plants that used to be made at Zwickau will be made there. Concerning Osnabrück, the decision for the T-Roc convertible will lead to capital expenditure of about 80 million. So we will invest for the MQB there and will prepare for the whole production, starting from the body shop all the way to final assembly. Things that you mentioned, we are thinking about these for Osnabrück, but the final decision has not yet been made. Thank you very much. Right next to you, Mr. Clausen. You also had a question? Markus Clausen. I would like to ask you two questions. First, the MQB. You mentioned a share of 60% for the Volkswagen brand, and by 2020 it's to be about 80%. Mr. Witter said yesterday it's 50% this year, and by 2019 the peak is to be reached. And above all, he mentioned Skoda and Seat. So how do these numbers really match up? Maybe you could comment on this a bit more. The second question concerning the diesel, with the insecurity and the city bans to come. Are you planning something similar like the city guarantee, like some other brands? Well, concerning the MQB, my numbers are for the Volkswagen brand, and Mr. Müller's numbers, as far as I know, were group-wide, worldwide group-wide numbers. And I have to say, in principle, it's about 80% of the group's vehicles which are based on kits from Wolfsburg. The whole transverse and longitudinal architecture comes from Wolfsburg. About 8 million vehicles per car. And now we're consistently switching over to the new platforms. Skoda, as a brand, is very much in the lead. It was the first and the quickest user, so there's some shift. Ultimately, we'll see that in this transverse world, it will be about 90 to 95% converted to the MQB over the next few years. So we will have a worldwide kit for the transverse architecture, ranging from the Polo as the smallest model up to the B SUV, the Atlas. It's a very scalable worldwide platform, which we feel is a great competitive advantage, not just for us, but also for our sister brands, saving themselves a lot of development effort so they can generate high margins, and these margins and the growth that we've experienced is very much due to the MQB. Second question concerning the diesel. We think that we can avoid diesel bans in the cities. This is our main objective, and once we've achieved that, we think that the issue of the residual values will very much be qualified over the next few months, really. Of course, we're intensively talking to our dealers. We're trying to avoid any damage to them. We're continuously discussing this. Our main objective is avoiding diesel bans in cities, and then the residual values will go up automatically. We've also had increasing gasoline engine residual values with the decreasing diesel residual values. But as soon as this ban topic is off, we will also have overcome this. The next question from Ms. Meyer. Ms. Ulbrich mentioned the first wave of the MEB. Would you be so kind and tell us what the second wave of the MEB means, or what benefits come from it? And then a question for information. The MQB matrix means that diesel engines and electric engines and gasoline engines can be used. Does this mean for the future that MQB vehicles with electric motors are getting cheaper? And MEB, will this be the premium league of electric vehicles, or what will it look like? And the new plants delivering MEB vehicles, will these be MQB models, or will this be completely newly designed? Maybe Dr. Dies could start with this question of MEB and MQB, and Mr. Ulbrich could then comment on the second wave. You're addressing a good point. MEB and MQB, we have electric vehicles on both platforms. The Golf is working well. It was the best-selling electric vehicle in Europe, and it's based on the MQB. So we could have gone on like this, if you will. However, this matrix doesn't make full use of the potential. We have limits in range compared to vehicles with a flat battery. We have limitations in spaciousness because we have to provide space for the combustion engine, for gas tanks, and so on. So an MQB in electrical world will always be a compromise. It's working well. For the transition, it was the right technology, but when we reach levels of 1 million, 2 million electrical cars per year, we feel that then it makes more sense to have a separate matrix for it, and the advantages of electrical mobility can be made full use of. On average, it will be 100 or 150 kilometers more range, clearly more space. Drivers on the right set of wheels then in the rear, because you have this high torque on electric vehicles, and you have problems of getting this torque onto the road on the e-Golf when driving off. So this will be better then, and with a powerful footprint in China, we may be the first worldwide to introduce a separate matrix for electrical cars, and we will make consistent use of this. This will be a competitive advantage compared to those competitors who are still relying on mixed architectures. So this is something we expect to happen, and you're right to say there will still be MQB electric vehicles. There will be 2 this year in China, but they have this certain limit on range. It doesn't have so much to do with pricing, but there is this limitation on range. The ID that we're making will be a model which is positioned around the Golf, and which one of the 2 will be slightly more expensive. We haven't decided on this yet. Let me add, Ms. Meyer, on the plants and the advantages of the MEB. Like the MQB had advantages compared to the PQ in terms of its design and effectiveness, even more benefits have been unearthed now with the MQB. We will always strive to consolidate MEB production like at Zwickau in the first wave, but we will not always manage, and we will not always be able to guarantee this. It's our objective to do so in order to consolidate the supply chain, but this will not always be possible. There may be some plants where we will make MEB and MQB cars, but there will not be a free mix, but it will be different discs. Some plants have 2 different sets, so you could convert them step by step. Concerning the second wave, please bear with us. You've seen this, you saw it at Geneva. We're working on our product portfolio, how to expand this, but the decision on how to utilize plants will only come in the second half of the year. And then we can comment on the second half. I have 6 more requests for the floor, and then I would like to close the list, or we would exceed our time. The next question is from Ms. Rodriguez.
Hi, Yvette Rodriguez. Could you please give us more details about the new SUV that the brand will be producing in Mexico? In 2020, it will be designed on the MQB platform. It will be a compact SUV or a full-size SUV. And I don't know if you have the investment in this new project. Thank you.
I think most of the details we gave already. It will be a compact SUV positioned below the Tiguan, which will be, as the Tiguan, a worldwide product. It will be based on MQB. That means that we also can use the investments, which we are, Mexico plant is prepared for MQB. We will use those investments. And we think it's really an appropriate product for North America and also potentially for Mexico.
So, und dann neben Ihnen gleich.
Right then, next to you, we have Mr. Martinez.
Hi, I would like to know if the political way, like the president of the U.S., is a problem for your plants, for the production plants for North American region. Now we have a problem with the NAFTA. So are you looking this like as a problem for the company?
I would say currently it's not a problem, but it is a concern. No, it's a potential concern for us if we would have trade constraints and import taxes towards US, which will be our main market. That would be a challenging situation for us. It always depends on the amount of the height. But so far, we think we will increase our production capacity in North America. We're still investing strongly in North America. We think that we find the right balance between keeping our investments going in Mexico and also further investment in the United States. We think we have a good footprint, but negotiations about NAFTA are ongoing. But our experience over the past months, and we're following very closely, as that the debate became a little bit more rational now, and we hope that America and Mexico is on a good way there. That would be very helpful for us and for our long-term commitments.
So, und da würde ich Herrn Piccione.
Then Mr. Piccione Plana, near the aisle, raising your hand. Could we please bring him a roving mic? And then we'll hear Mr. Belleguarda.
Good morning. I see that there are more launches of SUVs for China and US than in Europe. There is any reason for that? Maybe the WLTP?
Are there more for China? You know, in China, we always have the situation that we have two joint ventures, which means that basically every segment we double our product offering. No, we will have always a derivative for our FAW joint venture and for our SEG joint venture. In the case of the Tiguan, we have one model which is not called the Tiguan in the north, Tiguan in the south. So we have potentially always more. We are trying to use the SUV portfolio worldwide. So we have basically every product offering for every market. It depends whether we see a strong segment development or not. In Europe, we think, or our feeling is that we are growing faster with more compact SUVs because we have that constraint of let's say, or the duty to reduce CO2 emissions. A compact SUV like the T-Roc, we think is a very appropriate model here for Europe. We don't offer it in the United States, but we offer it in China. So we are trying to make best use of our product portfolio. The more compact cars probably for Europe, a little bit in China, and the larger SUVs in the United States. But in all regions, we will basically double the amount of SUVs in our product portfolio until 2020. And we see that development in all regions. We will have about 40% of our products sold as SUVs by 2020, roughly in all three major regions. In China, US and Europe.
Herr Volleguarda, bitte, und dann Herr Menzel.
Mr. Volleguarda and Mr. Wenzel, please.
Passing the microphone to me. I'm Dave Sullivan. I have two questions. One, can you update us on the fines, from the diesel scandal and where the money I believe was going to charging infrastructure in the U.S., some of that, and what your involvement is for the future of the ID vehicles and how that is going to help out with your rollout. And also, are you forecasting any additional expenses for the repairs or the buybacks from the diesel vehicles in the U.S.? And then yesterday there was not too much talk about, really there was no talk about plug-in hybrids in Berlin. Very little talk today about it. And most of the focus has been on the ID lineup. Are plug-in hybrids still part of your plans for the U.S. or Europe?
Okay. Okay, so die Strafen, weiß nicht, habe ich nicht parat. Konzernzahlen, ne?
Ja, Infrastructure ist die Electrify America to build.
Yeah. Regarding the, let's say, the amount of money paid in the United States, I'm sorry, I have not the full disclosure of the figures for the United States because this is being dealt with on group level because it involves, it involves Audi, Volkswagen, whatsoever. What we are investing is about 2 billion in electric fast charging infrastructure. The project is well on the way. It will be an open infrastructure. No, that means not exclusively for Volkswagen, but open for all our American and international peers. We will promote that group-wide. This is also a major step. It's called Electrify America, and we think it's also a good step forward also to prepare for our EVs being sold in America. For the buybacks, I think we are fully covered. So all the
from our best knowledge.
From our best knowledge, so we don't see any further risks from today's perspective there. Plug-in hybrids, yes, are an important cornerstone of our product strategy. In China, we're just launching the new Tiguan plug-in hybrid, long wheelbase, which will be an important product. We see plug-in hybrids very important in China, probably for the next 5 to 10 years, because the Chinese government is very much, let's say, driving the industry towards full electric cars. The incentives for plug-in hybrids will become lower over time. So our strategy is in China now plug-in hybrids and electric cars on MQB platform. Next generation, mostly MEB products to be compliant, and probably a reduced amount of plug-in hybrids. In Europe, we have a strong plug-in hybrid strategy. Passat, I would say, from the testing, is one of the best plug-in hybrids you could buy here in Europe. We are also in the next generation of all our conventional products. So Golf, we are strongly investing in hybrids again. They will get better range. They will get better electric performance. So you will see a lot of development, mostly also for Europe and potentially for the United States. The disadvantage in the United States is that the upstream emissions are calculated in the emissions certificate of the vehicle. So that means a plug-in hybrid in the United States is less attractive than here in Europe. But it's part of our strategy. We think in Europe it's crucial. In China, it's for the next 10 years or 5 to 10 years, very important still. In America, we are prepared. We could offer, but we have to see what's going the market development for plug-in hybrids.
Und damit das Mikrofon bitte zu Herrn Menzel und dann.
Then the microphone to Mr. Menzel, and I believe I saw Jan Schwarz for the last question from Mr. Schwarz. Stefan Menzel from Handelsblatt. One single long-term strategic question probably goes to Mr. Dies, if he will take it. In the foreseeable future, will there be an IPO of your truck division? What will happen with the transporters on a strategic level in Hanover and Poland? That manufacturing, will those be taken back into the brand? Is that planned? The answer. First, it's about preparing the truck business to be able to go public. Those are internal organizational measures that are involved, and the decision on the time deadline or the implementation had not been taken yet. And then we'd have to consider what to do with the transporters. First, they're independent also financially. They're a reporting unit, which is independent of the truck business. They could continue existing independent of the truck business. On that note, on to the last question, Mr. Young Schwarz, and the very last question will be Mr. Amorel.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you two things, some additional questions on these. First, on the trade barriers in the US, you commented on them several times. I'd just like to have a bit more clarity here. Upon a question of an American colleague, you said that capacities in North America will be expanded. Would you say that this is expressly in the context of the import duties that are to come and the threats that are around, so that you're going to localize more and expand your capacities in North America more? And the second thing, you were asked about this internal paper, which was quoted in Die Zeit, which said that technical retrofits are quite possible. And upon the question of my colleague, you said there were still some models according to EU5 and EU6, and you put this quite drastically. You said that holes had to be drilled and wiring, and you said it was more than 60% of vehicles. And you mentioned models like Passat and Golf and Audi A3. Could you explicitly confirm this, that there is this internal paper, and that this percentage of, in fact, 70% retrofittable vehicles, that this ratio is correct? Well, let's begin with the last question. Of course, we have always said it's possible. You can always install SCR technology on vehicles. Only our response has always been a rigged-up solution is not possible without any warranty. It may be quick, but the customer doesn't get any warranty and will have quality problems. It's really quite a complex task. It's a chemical plant you're installing on a car. It may produce ammonia. I've seen some retrofitting solutions which do not have any backflow preventers, so that ammonia could escape. In some cases, this is really quite rigged up. It may work, but it may not work. Of course, there are some vehicles that can be retrofitted better. If we did this, we would test it, and to our customers, it would mean a guarantee then that it works. It may take 2 to 3 years, and 2 to 3 years from now, that's my forecast, we won't talk about this anymore, because it will be solved by other members with quicker software upgrades, with the replacement of the fleets, with new models, with more local measures in the cities. So we feel it's not a suitable means for solving this problem. The second issue, trade barriers and an expansion in the US. You have to be aware we're a volume manufacturer, and a volume manufacturer will always try to keep its production within a currency space, to hedge, so to speak, because these huge currency variations cannot be buffered otherwise. And our big target is 5% in the US, so to be a volume car maker in the US. And this calls for making a great number of cars in the economic space of the US or North America today. It's NAFTA. We hope it will remain like this. We're producing in the US and in Mexico. We have 2 major car-making plants and an engine plant. We're nearly completely sourcing in the local currency space there. It's practically the only strategy for a volume car maker. So quite independent from import or export duties. We will always try to make as much locally as possible. For a premium car maker who have a more tactical approach, it may be a different business model. So, concerning import duties for the US, well, we'll have to ask ourselves why we are charging 10% of an import duty on American cars in Europe. That's a justified discussion. The Americans are not doing this. And now the very last question.
Thank you. I have a question about North America and another one on South America. For the US, much of the strategy is based on EVs, but demand for electric vehicles is not quite there yet and maybe will never reach what OEMs are expecting. What happens if consumers don't buy Volkswagen branded EVs? Is there any kind of punishment from the DOJ or the state of California if a certain number of EVs are not sold? And on South America, I have a question about Brazil. How does Volkswagen plan, and by when does it plan to become the leader in the market? And how many SUVs are planned for South America? Thank you.
Okay, bunch of questions. So there is no obligation or quota to sell any EVs in the United States. So there are no duties, but as we see the fleet targets also coming down for different fleet groups, or for the imported vehicles, for the local produced vehicles, we think it's probably also, like in Europe, an appropriate way to cope with the fleet targets. And in America, yes, we have some regions which are really also let's say, prioritizing electric vehicles. West Coast, there are pilot projects in Sacramento, also on the East Coast, so there is an uptake in EVs. Why are we also let's say, positive about EVs? Because we think that the next generation of EVs, which we will offer, will be a real alternative for the customer. No, you will get a vehicle at the same price like a diesel, a roomier vehicle, fully connected vehicles with fast charging possibility, and there will be, it will be difficult for many customers not to buy an electric vehicle. And we saw that here with our incentive program over the past few months in Europe. That's exactly how people behave. Even not having the infrastructure, even the range is still limited to maximum 300 kilometers. We had a huge uptake already on electric vehicles because there are some advantages. No? There's good performance. Many people love that. If you don't drive several hundred kilometers per day, it is probably the best vehicle you would buy already today. No, there are still constraints in the loading infrastructure, but people love them. And after buying, you have an advantage of at least 50% of the running cost of the vehicle, because electric energy is cheaper than gasoline with all the taxes. So Latin America, we don't see a fast-growing EV market, but on the other hand, we have seen in our last visit, when we have been there, that there are some countries which have 100% renewables, which was Uruguay, for instance, and having 100% renewables, or a high quota of renewable energies, electric vehicles make a lot of sense, because then you are CO2 free. You can really drive down your carbon footprint. And we learned that Uruguay has a strong policy towards electric vehicles. They would like to electrify the whole coastal area, which makes for Uruguay a lot of sense because of their energy mix. So in the rest of the country, it's not our first priority. But we have to say we are prepared. No, we have the vehicles. We have the toolbox for electric vehicles. And, the EV market will depend a lot on the policies of governmental policies. That's the case in China. That's the case in Norway. Norway makes also a lot of sense. Now you have 100% renewables. Energy is really cheap, so you would go for electric vehicles. Is it the right strategy for all countries? Probably not. Now, if you have a high coal mix in energy production, you should be probably a bit slower. First change your energy production and then come forward with an EV strategy. But what's really important to see here, the product offering is important, but the local policies also play a major role in the uptake of electric vehicles.
And finally, how to become market leader in Brazil?
Yeah, when was the question? We want to become market leader. We think we have really a nice product cadence to come in the next years. All very modern product. We are really motivated and enthusiastic about the first months. No, we were not sure whether the technology we offer with the Polo is not too high for this market. No, because it's a very sophisticated product and it's not the cheapest product. So there was doubts. But the uptake shows us, the sales results show us that it's the right technology. Meanwhile, for Latin America, I think we will get there. We have no target when.
Meine Damen und Herren, damit bedanken wir uns ganz herzlich für.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this we would like to thank you for your interest. We hope you will have a nice day and a good rest of the week, possibly with Audi tomorrow, and then to crown things on Friday with Porsche. Have a nice day and enjoy lunch.